Alright. Come on. That a girl. Wait. I hadn't put the sound in. Speaking of sound, come closer, will you? This close should be enough. It is less hot. It has cooled down recently, enough for me to be able to wear this kind of things, but it's still kind of hot. Where is my spoon? Fuck. Ta-da! Hi, hello, salutations, channel reveal, wow, hi, oh my god! So, I've been playing Clair Obscur recently, duh, everybody is. But, the plan originally with this channel was to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos that would hopefully encapsulate the scope of what I will discuss here, and this wasn't part of the plan. I had another idea in mind for the 5th video. Unfortunately, I have finished Clair Obscur, a game so rich in meaning and narratively significant detail that I have spent this last few days having a back and forth with myself about its story, and it spiraled so out of control that I figured I might as well make a video out of it. And since the amount of content and discussion from Clair Obscur is way too much to take in as an introductory video to my channel, I decided to scope down to the character of Verso. This game broke my schedule in more ways than one, because at first I intended to not make much of a deal of my origins since I wanted to work out myself to an English-speaking fandom. But alas, our friend Studio decided to release a game so French, the amount of insight we have on it is frankly insane. For example, you might learn here what Verso as a name stands for and why it was chosen for that character. Verso is a word generally used in tandem with recto. We use it as recto verso. So in Clair Obscur, when that name appeared, we had an immediate inkling as to what exactly was going on. The game is so good at foreshadowing the nature of this world. Oh right, spoiler alert for all of the game, by the way, right, yeah. Anyway, we still had a bit of a lead because Verso means the back of a page, whereas recto means the front of a page. In our collective unconscious, it's something that signifies doubles. A homonym, a clone, perhaps, and so for a while I was scratching my head as to what Verso was the Verso of, the back of, until it was revealed that he simply was the Verso of himself. The recto in this case would be the real Verso from the Dessendre family. By the way, descendre is a letter of from a verb meaning to go down. Except the original Verso is not named recto. He is named Verso, it is Verso. The name of the original is already the name that symbolizes a clone, a doppelganger, whereas most characters in the canvas who act as a parallel from beyond have a nickname. The paintress, the curator, Maëlle, and even if Claire doesn't indulge herself in the Dessendre's theatrics, it is telling that Verso, any of the two, do not either. It's not a personal choice though, rather it's a narrative choice from the writers. Verso's very name is one of an impostor, of a double, but it's not the name of the impostor. I find it very clever because it adds to the discussion of what is real or not in Clair Obscur, and in this case, of what Verso considers to be real or not. Verso as a character is defined from his name as a clone. It's what he believes he is, even if he's not based on a recto. The fact that he's named Verso implies the character is viewed as a clone. The very thing that is tormenting him. His name here is so well chosen because it's the centerpiece of his inner conflict. Is he a clone? Is this world worth existence? And what can he do for the real, deceased Verso? He grieves himself. He can't handle eternity when he's supposed to be dead. He can handle the ramifications of his own existence. Despite that, he's as close as Verso as can be. That's why he has no recto. His identity as a clone has no foundation, no initial being, because it's an illusion. Verso is Aline's finest creation. Creation in Clair Obscur is real. Verso is Aline's finest attempt to recreate Verso, and as Verso himself teaches Maëlle, to paint or repaint someone is to capture not the details, the cumbersome vision you have of them, but their essence, their core, and from which does it emerge a ciel with the same foundation but variations in its details? No, it's as if Maëlle envisioned her soul, and from that came everything else. That is the meaning of the essence here. The inhabitants of the converse are repeatedly shown as real to their own reality. They don't obey the painters like puppets. They don't magically align with what Maëlle wants of them, for example, nor can Noir or Alain brainwash the entire converse to their desires. Mental corruption has its place in this world, don't get me wrong, but merely as another form of powerful magic. It's not an overhaul like a writer would have on a character. It's plain old corruption. This indicates that the beings of the canvas are real and independent once created. Even the remnant of the deceased Verso's soul is in that god, as we see him stop painting, yet that doesn't bring Lune or Ciel to a halt. That comes of Renoir's later erasure of the canvas. We even know from Lune that Maëlle... Lune? I think it's Lune in English. We even know from Lune that Maëlle could repaint a canvas representing the outside world with fidelity, and with as little as we know of the outside, a whole infinite simulation is entirely possible. So to define the Dessendre as more real than their creation is blatantly wrong, and to circle back to define Verso as less real than he feels he is a clone of is too. Alain painted him with Verso's very essence, so his soul, essentially. Soul that is held in the very canvas. To get a feel of Verso after passing is really not that difficult if it's all around the canvas, which is why I don't think of Verso as a false Verso, a doppelganger, a double of the original, or an imperfect clone. I view him as a second Verso. Plain and simple, embodying the same exact traits, simply one was out of this world and the other was born in it with a purpose in mind for him. A purpose he refused, as he was, in fact, too much like Verso the First. Verso the First is repeatedly shown as benevolent, as a kind soul, kind as can be. So loving, in fact, that he sacrificed himself for the survival of Alicia. That is all we actually see of him in a flashback. We learn a lot of him, yes, but his act of heroism of Alicia is the one outright shown. And what is the very first thing we see Verso II do in Clair Obscur? It's not stepping in too late for Gustave, no, it's saving Maëlle on the beach. First impressions in storytelling is remarkably important because where everything is well thought out on the writer's mind, the first appearance of a character is way more intricate than later characterization, as that first impression does a lot of heavy lifting. And what does Verso I like? Not painting, even though he did, he preferred to practice music. Verso II is the exact same. From teaching Maëlle, he is shown to have knowledge of painting, but he tells and proves that his true calling is that of piano. And most importantly, the Dessendre family is the most important thing in his existence, one worth dying over. And Verso II embodies that as well. As much as it hurts the paintress and Maëlle, the paintress didn't make a Verso that aligns with what she wanted of him, what she would have liked him to be. No, the second Verso is so intrinsically Verso that none of his traits are removed or altered, beyond the physics and magic of this world making him immortal, of course. All of this piles up to bring me to the conclusion that Verso II is as much Verso as is Verso I. It's similar to the teleportation dilemma. All of the atoms and chemical reactions defining you are zapped from a place and recreated in another, as teleportation often implies in fiction. Now, did that entry teleporter just kill this person and did the exit just clone him? Or is the person coming out of the teleporter even really them? And I understand Verso's point of view because I would personally say no to the teleporter question. I believe that as much as that second person has a memory and personality and everything else of the first's mind went dark as soon as he was decompiled. But this game is not that teleporter dilemma. Why? Because souls are involved. Verso's soul is the essence of everyone. It is left within the canvas as long as it stands. So while I get Verso's torment, I believe he is fundamentally wrong about how he views himself to be, and that error comes from his innate love from the Dessendre family, that he views as needing saving to such a degree that he is willing to discard a world full of living, breathing people to force them to grieve. And that hypocrisy is written in, it's not a mistake. Firstly, it's stated directly by Verso that hypocrisy is a major factor in the Dessendre squabble, including his own, but it is also shown. I want you to remember something. Mal affecting a gommage on painting Alicia without Verso's approval. He jumps, screams, is shook at what happens. He values Alicia as a living, breathing sister that has just been erased without a proper goodbye. What he fails to understand is that, contrary to Verso, she doesn't have a bias. She is sick of her existence as he is, but she views himself as a fictitious being as much as everyone else in the canvas. That's why she doesn't bother to consider her brother's feeling in her death. But Verso is so loving of the Dessendre, even the painting family is alive for him. He was so struck by Alicia's passing and visibly distraught when painted Renoir died, because there are another set of Dessendre, and he values them as such. And while he considers them people worthy of proper goodbyes and a gentle death, it is evident that this is very much not the case for Gustave, for example. His very nature as a clone leads him to value as real in the painting only the two set of Dessendres, and while he is very kind to the creation in the canvas, such as Ciel and Lune, it's who he is after all. He doesn't consider them as any more valuable than he is, even though they are alive and frankly, original compared to them. He is willing to let them die for his mission, to lead them astray so that he might in the end basically kill all of them. His kindness in general is outshined by his kindness to the Dessendre and leads to an hypocritical pragmatism of what he values or not in the canvas, when that is not his to decide. Even Monoko questions his authenticity, and he is loyal to a fault to Verso, enough to follow him along with this plan, which he sometimes is against even. Monoko, doubtful as he is, wants to honor the second chances that Verso the First wanted to give everyone, but that Verso the Second doesn't acknowledge, simply because of the scale of his existence and the circumstances of his birth, which he views as lesser than the fate of Verso the First's family. SK even comments that the Versos are very much alike, and they differ only from the settings they are in, not in their essence. Monoko and SK, beings who are aware of their condition as creations, don't seem displeased in Mal's chosen ending too. And I have mentioned a lot of things with Verso, from his kindness to his hypocrisy and right to his sense of self, but what I have yet to bring up, and that a lot of you might have just brushed over because Verso is very efficient in that department, is that Verso is a liar. A cold-blooded liar who has the best interest at heart when he manages to make you believe that he does. It's quite easy to see the charming Verso at the end of it all, with a noble cause and a self-sacrifice, but that's only because he is very good at making you forget how he lied to you at every single turn, and has changed his worldview or fainted that he did on so many occasions. He is such a compulsive liar that even his dad paints him as such. Verso, yes, openly calls himself a hypocrite during the final battle, but his actions also prove it. He betrayed the expeditions, abandoned his painted family, and manipulated those closest to him, all because he felt unworthy of existing, convinced that he and his kind were false compared to the real Dessendre. As Lune describes, Verso is deeply Manichaean. He sees reality in absolutes, ignoring nuances, and clings only to his ideals. Despite his apparent kindness and honesty, Aline's masterpiece, perfect by design, Verso wears masks, constantly denying who he is while projecting moral superiority. His narcissism drives everything. He judges Maël for wishing Alicia without a farewell, yet deliberately lets Gustave die to manipulate her detachment from this world. Monoko senses Verso's dangerous plans but stays loyal. Lune tries to rally him towards acceptance, and his painted family clings to denial just to survive. But Verso, unable to bear his false immortality and divine role, chooses to sacrifice an entire universe to soothe his broken self-image, disguising his despair as righteousness. In the end, everyone loses. Monoko, Esquier, Ciel, Lune, Alicia, the whole world of Lumiere. And he fooled you into thinking you were acting through maturity, that you made the adult choice because it's the one of grief, despite all that is lost in those who had nothing to do with it. Verso is a superb character. I simply think he's wrong in what he's written as an incredibly grey suicide contest between him and Mael. But the scale of Verso's death wish hits on a way larger scale than Mael does, and while it is tragic, that ending, I still view it as more morally correct. And the way it ends for him isn't even that sad. Because, okay, think of it this way. If Aline painted another set of Dessendre and then the painters Alicia, Claire and Renoir and herself let this world alone, would Verso even end up like this? No, he wouldn't. He would live his life, probably with impostor syndrome, sure, but he could age and have his own life the way Monoko described Verso the first, probably wanting for Verso the second. The Dessendre's family's intervention is what transformed Verso from a reasonable, kind-hearted man to a hypocrite with screwed values whose shoulders bear the weight of the world. With Mael, he's free to age and eventually die with a fulfilled life, like he would have had originally, without the Dessendre's shenanigans. Mael isn't corrupting or forcing any of this to happen, as we see that corruption is visible when applied. She resurrected everything that was lost and then engaged in a long form of suicide, which is the single tragedy of Mael's ending. She is killing herself, and Verso struggles with the fact that he couldn't save the Dessendres like his nature yells him to. He may have had the best life he could have in the canvas. He struggles that essentially, Alicia died in that fire. He didn't save her, he died and she followed. Would she have if Aline didn't bring upon the parental conflicts in the Dessendres household? After all, if Alicia entered the convent, it was to help them. But she couldn't resist Aline, so she came on the other hand as Mael. And obviously I can blame a mother for mourning her son. Rooting the issue doesn't really give us an actual culprit, and going further like saying the writers in-universe writers are at fault for that end disregards the emotional components that lead to it. In Mael's ending, all is well. The convent is still alive and every sentient being in it with it, and Verso can live as he should have. Unfortunately, he is plagued by the knowledge that Alicia really did die in that fire, and that he remains powerless to stop it. That's what we're seeing in the end. All is well, except for her, and Verso, as is his nature, suffers from it greatly. He couldn't save the few people he cared for, even if by not doing it was prevented thousands of deaths, maybe more. This is my take on Verso. A neurotic heroism, kind-spirited pragmatism, hypocrite yet true to himself. And I like to leave it here for you. I also omitted the fragmented soul of Verso, which are found here and there, with the most important one being the painter, who's tired. I didn't include him, or them for that matter, because Verso the first was whole, and Aline summoned his whole soul to make Verso the second. So there are, in my eyes, a better representations of him than the shattered and lost remains. But it's still interesting to ask whether the painter's opinion matters in all of this. As we've seen, his role is pretty vague, since he doesn't dictate this universe's inhabitants either, so we have way less ground to debate on. So I'd like to see your interpretation of this matter. While you're down there, you can add whether or not I overthought this. And if you like that in me, stick around. That's the cross this channel is set to bear. If you love this content, but that you also like anime, other video games, or comic book discussions, that's all up on the channel too. In fact, there are 2 videos on Dragon Ball, one on Cyberpunk, a part of storytelling that you probably didn't consider, but that's really relevant to the one found in Clair Obscur actually, and there's even a critique of Invincible Season 3 if you'd like. For now though, my hot chocolate is finally perfectly heated up and mixed, so I'll catch you in the next one. Hopefully. This has been a character analysis video of Verso by the Mayor. See ya, goodbye, farewell. This was pretty short. This is the rambling part of the video. Anyway, as was said in the beginning, I didn't plan to make this video. I had other plans for the 5th video of this channel. And to be honest, it was supposed to be on the Joker. Comic character, you know him. And how he was misrepresented as of late, as of 20 years late. But since I already covered Invincible, which is also a comic book theme, I thought I could probably replace that with my itch that was Clair Obscur and make this video in much more of a hurry. It's a little bit on the short side, and honestly on the scale unlike the rest of the videos to be. It also is longer than it should have, because for a while I didn't really know what to do of the accent, the masks, because that paints Verso as a liar. And for a while I kind of forgot this part of this character. He killed people, he killed his love interest, he killed so many expeditions in his mission. And yet he's painted as this good guy. Why? Because he's such an effective liar and so charismatic, and he seems good-hearted. He seems good-hearted. And so the lying part, the lying segment of the video was very tagged on. Honestly, I kind of thought of doing it just before doing the recording for it. Anyway, this has been the Mayor. Yada 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 yada. Bye.